It's all come down to this. Joe Burrows, quarterback, LSU. Justin Fields, quarterback, Ohio State. Jalen Hurts, quarterback, Oklahoma. And Chase Young, defensive end, Ohio State. Who will win the Heisman? Plus, coaching changes from around the nation, including Chad Morris, Matt Luke, and many more. And finally, a preview of this week's matchup between Army and Navy. Find out on this week's episode of Heisman Talk. Here's your host, the Nate Dogg.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another Heisman Talk. Today we are going to be discussing Heisman predictions, recent coaching hires, and a preview of the Army-Navy game. So if you're a college football fan as big as I am, y'all know that today is a huge day in college football. It is the day that one lucky man will become a part of history and become a part of the great tradition in winning this year's College Football Player of the Year. It comes down to four candidates: Joe Burrows, quarterback of LSU; Justin Fields, quarterback of Ohio State; Jalen Hurts, quarterback of Oklahoma; and of course Chase Young, defensive end of Ohio State. Now, you got to tip your caps to Ohio State. Ohio State has two Heisman finalists, both on offense and defense, and that resonates with me a lot. I think that's really impressive to do. Yet alone to get one player there, they got two players there, and both are very explosive players, very good players. Joe Burrows is obviously going to take this award home. If he doesn't, I will be shocked. The level of competition that he has played against on the road at Texas, SEC championship against Georgia, on the road against Bama, and the list goes on. I believe at the end of the year he faced 5 teams this season in the top 10 at the time that they were playing them. Obviously, Texas kind of fell out. But yeah. So they played 5 top 10 teams this year, along with the SEC championship. But I mean, even off the field, Joe Burrows is a class act. He's not afraid to take a hit. He's not afraid to lead his team, and that's what makes him so special. But let's give credit to the coaching staff of LSU as well. Of course, Coach O is a great coach, great recruiter. In fact, the story came out last week about him ordering 15 pounds of crawfish just for Joe Burrows when the restaurant didn't have it. So you know how much he liked him and how much he wanted him to come to LSU. But let's not forget about Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, that's really turned that offense around. You think about the last time LSU had a quarterback. I don't think I've ever heard of a quarterback from LSU and the talks for a Heisman Trophy award, at least in my lifetime anyways. If you've thought of someone else, please comment down below. I'd love to figure that out and establish that. But Justin Fields for Ohio State has had an incredible year as well. 50 touchdowns, 40 of them passing, 10 of them rushing, which is really impressive as well. His ability to make people miss, and really he's a big-bodied kid. He just gets out there and runs people over as well. And his one interception on the year, 50 touchdowns, one interception, that's pretty dang good as a true sophomore. And just to see his development from last year to this year, transferring from Georgia. He almost wanted to come back to Georgia, stepped out of his comfort zone, stayed there, and I think it's paid off because he's going to have a chance in the college football playoff come the end of December. Then you look at a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, who has experience in the SEC and Big 12 now. He played extremely well against SEC opponents at Alabama and won a national title. This year he struggled a little bit. I've had a lot of concerns with him. I've given him a hard time. I think he's a great guy off the field as well. Puts up a lot of points. He's a great leader and runs the ball well. His accuracy hasn't been there. He's threw for 1 touchdown, 1 interception in the Big 12 championship. And when you're in that kind of stage, you kind of need to step up if you really want to be the best college football player this year. I believe Joe Burrows obviously exceeded expectations in that matter with the SEC championship. But Jalen Hurts, I struggled a little bit, even though he won the Big 12 championship. Then you look at Chase Young. The last time a defensive player was up for a Heisman was, I believe, Tyrann Mathieu or Ndamukong Suh around that era of the 2010 and 2013 era. Monte Teo as well from Notre Dame was up for Heisman, but you know what happened with that story. His stats are impressive. Chase Young has been by far the best defensive player of the year. Of course, he won the defensive player of the defensive player of the year award, with 44 tackles, 16 and a half sacks, and 6 forced fumbles. In my opinion, he's going to be top 2 draft picks. Probably be him and Joe Burrows in the top 2. I'm not sure which one will go first, but obviously he's got a really good chance. So with that being said, I think Joe Burrows is the runaway favorite for the Heisman Trophy Award. I think he deserves it. Just to see where he's come from, to transfer from Ohio State, be told he wasn't good enough to start. In fact, I believe Ohio State was his only big offer. He originally wanted to go to Nebraska. They told him he wasn't good enough, and he's proved everyone wrong. He's up for a Heisman Trophy Award in probably the best conference in college football right now, in the SEC. So now we're going to switch subject matters to coaching changes this offseason. It has been a very interesting offseason so far. One of the most shocking hires of the season so far has been Sam Pittman of Arkansas. He comes over from being an offensive line coach at Georgia. Never has had any experience as a head coach, but I tell you what he does have experience in, and that's recruiting, and he's a hell of a recruiter at that. You look at Georgia's offensive line and the relationships he's built. I mean, the day after he decided to leave and take the head coaching job at Arkansas, one of the 4-star offensive line recruits from Georgia, who I believe is like 6'5", 6'6", 320 pounds, decommitted from Georgia, from UGA, stating that he was committed to Sam Pittman, not the University of Georgia, which, I mean, sounds selfish at first, but it just speaks volume to what kind of person Sam Pittman is and the kind of relationships he builds with these guys. I think this will be really surprising to a lot of people on how well he does. He's going to surround himself with a great staff. He's going to recruit. I mean, you think about it, it all starts with the offensive line, right? And the offensive line, if they're not there at Georgia, then the running backs and quarterbacks aren't going to want to come. You know, you think about it. The offensive line commit, the quarterback's not going to want to get hit. Running back's going to want holes to run through, right? So you take away that element, and it opens up recruitment for everyone. So congratulations to Sam Pittman. I'm really happy for him. I think he's going to do an excellent job at Arkansas. I think he's going to prove a lot of people wrong. And I also think he has a very strong backing at that. You think about the guys he's got behind him as far as the Alumni Association go. You got big guys as far as billionaires, even Jerry Jones, and then you got someone like John Daly, professional golfer, who have a great love for the university and state of Arkansas that I think will help him build the facilities and help him get the resources around him that he'll need to make that program successful again. It wasn't that long ago that Florida State was, it wasn't that long ago that, Florida State was competing for championships, and I guess we'll go to that guy next. If I can find. Willie Taggart tried to take over, and the new head coach at Florida State will be Mike Norvell. Of course, he's the former head coach of Memphis. Took them to a AAC championship and won. That'll be Memphis's first AAC championship, and they'll have an appearance in the Cotton Bowl in a few weeks. So Mike Norvell will be the new head coach at Florida State. Willie Taggart tried to do his best after Jimbo Fisher left. They have the facilities. They have great weather. They have great recruiting. I'm not really sure what's gone wrong. You wonder if it's almost the administration and athletic director that have gone downhill as well. It's going to be interesting. I don't know much about Mike Norvell, but I know he's a great coach at Memphis, and hopefully he does well. I wish him the best there. So then we switch over to a university that's had a lot of controversy in the past 3 to 4 years. That is Ole Miss. They were bowl ineligible, I believe, last year or the year before, after all the scandals came out about former head coach Hugh Freeze and all the stuff that went on with the recruiting. Very unfortunate. Matt Luke stepped up to the plate in times of adversity. Didn't really care about the circumstances he had because of the love he has for that university, of course, being a former offensive lineman for them. A lot of love for that university, and unfortunately, he got fired. So Lane Kiffin steps in as the new head coach coming over from FAU. Lane Kiffin brings multiple years of head coaching and coordinator experience. Of course, you remember him mostly probably for being a offensive coordinator for Nick Saban. Those two butted heads quite a lot. But man, they were excellent coaches together. Won a few national titles. So with that being said, Nick Saban is undefeated against all of his assistants so far. I think Lane Kiffin could possibly be the first one to beat him. He's just got that mindset where he just wants to win. And if he wins against anyone, he's going to want to win against Nick Saban. He knows him very well, knows his tendencies. And with Nick Saban, obviously, possibly on the decline with their 2 losses this year, although I think they'll be back next year. It's going to be very interesting to see what Lane Kiffin can do with that program. And Plumlee at quarterback and his explosiveness with Lane Kiffin's offense will be a very explosive, exciting offense to watch come next year. So Willie Taggart, as I said earlier, got fired by Florida State. He was dealt really bad cards. Like I said, I don't really understand what's going on with that university, but he gets a fresh start at FAU and takes over for Lane Kiffin. When I think of Willie Taggart going to FAU, I kind of recall back to when Charlie Strong went from Louisville to Texas, struggled, obviously went to USF after that to a smaller school, back down to a smaller school, and had great success for a few years, although he got fired this year. That's unfortunate. But I'm hoping Willie Taggart can take the experience he's had and be able to continue to run the program down at FAU. I think he's a great coach. He obviously had much success at Oregon, and Florida State kind of just got dealt bad cards. I believe his first year there is when they played Alabama, and they just got smoked by them. Lost their quarterback in the first quarter that year, and the rest is history. Next on the list, we have Boston College Jeff Hafley. Hafley, I think I'm pronouncing that right. He is the current defensive coordinator of Ohio State, although I don't think he'll finish the year out with Ohio State. I believe he's already up at Boston College, starting his recruiting. It's very exciting. He brings a lot to the table, obviously, with Chase Young, one of his players. His defense is explosive, creates a lot of turnovers, and really handles big games well. So hopefully he can get that Boston College back to the level where it used to be with Luke Kuechly and Matt Ryan. The program has a lot of tradition, a lot of good alumni as well, so we'll see what happens there. And then we kind of transition into my favorite hires of the year, and that is the assistants positions. I think some of these are the most underrated coaching positions in college football. The first one being Chad Morris as the new offensive coordinator / quarterbacks coach at Auburn. Now, if y'all watch college football enough, y'all know that Chad Morris was the head coach of Arkansas for the past 2 years. Didn't really do very well as a head coach there. And then before that, he was at SMU. Didn't do very well there. But before that, as an offensive coordinator, he was the one that took Tosh Boyd and the Clemson offense with Sammy Watkins and DeAndre Hopkins to the the Orange Bowl, maybe the Sugar Bowl too. But mostly I remember the Orange Bowl against Ohio State where they absolutely destroyed them back in 2014 or 13, I believe. 5 state titles with Lake Travis and Austin, Texas. He brings a lot to the table. He also recruited in Deshaun Watson, so he's a great recruiter. Again, I think he got handed a bad set of cards at Arkansas. That program is in the dumps right now. It's going to take a lot for them to get out. I think they can do it. I think Sam Pittman, again, is a great hire. But I think Chad Morris is probably breathing a sigh of relief as he goes to Auburn. He kind of just gets to do what he knows best, and that's run an offense and recruit great players. He's already got Bo Nix there as a great quarterback. And let's not forget, Bo Nix is only a freshman. So next year, he's going to be a true sophomore with Chad Morris's offense, same offense that Deshaun Watson basically ran, and the same offense that Tosh Boyd ran to win a national title, Deshaun Watson that being. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Be looking out for Chad Morris and Auburn's offense. I think it's going to be very dangerous. I think the SEC has something to look out for next year for sure. And finally, we talk about Matt Luke coming to UGA, coming to Georgia. He will be the new offensive line coach. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, he got fired from Ole Miss. Unfortunately, I truly believe it was because of the celebration at the end of the Egg Bowl where one of his players decided it would be a good idea before the game was even over to lift his leg and pee like a dog. And, of course, they missed the kick, lose the game, and his coach gets fired. There's a lot to be said about Matt Luke, his integrity, his love for the game, his ability to recruit. When he did get fired, they held a team meeting, I believe, a few days later. And when the team found out that he was fired and moving on, half of the team walked out and said they were very upset. It just kind of shows you what kind of relationships you can build with players as well. When you got guys walking out of a meeting, I don't think it's selfishness. I think it's because they see Matt Luke as a father figure to them. And it's unfortunate the way things ended, but look at it this way. He gets a fresh start at UGA with a great coaching staff coming off of a 10-win season, SEC runner-ups. And by the way, he's inheriting probably one of the best, if not the best, offensive lines in the country, recruited by Sam Pittman. So if he can take those players that Sam Pittman's recruited and continue to recruit them to the University of Georgia with such great tradition, I think he's going to find a lot of success. It'll be very interesting to see what happens next year. So today's big game at 3:30 on CBS is Army versus Navy. This is one of the coolest games of the year, both weather-wise and atmosphere-wise. There's a lot more to football. There's a lot more to the game. Every day people make sacrifices for our country and our military overseas, and I kind of want to just take the time to thank them and thank their families for the sacrifices they make every day for our country, so that way I can create shows like this and live in a country free. Army versus Navy is, again, like I said, the coolest atmosphere of the year. It's always the last game of the year, which I guess you could say they saved the best for last. College game day is always there. It's kind of a boring game to watch. I won't lie to you. With triple option offenses, it's not the most. If you're an offensive guy, you're probably not going to enjoy watching it. But just seeing the crowd, seeing all the Navy shipmen and the Army students in the crowd and their uniforms, it's very special, and it gives me chills every year I watch it. A lot of excitement. And this year, Navy is favored by 10.5, but don't count Army out. They're 5-7, but I tell you what, this game means more to them than any other game of the season. They're going to play with all their hearts, with all that they've got. They're going to lay everything out on the line, and it should be a really exciting game to watch as far as just the camaraderie and the rivalry and the tradition behind the game. So on next week's episode, we will discuss bowl predictions. We've got a lot coming up. We're kind of entering the end of the season mode. After the season, I'm still looking to continue this show. It'll shift gears a little bit. It'll go from game predictions and that kind of sort to recruiting predictions and coaching changes and all that good stuff that goes on during the off season. We'll transition into the spring games, and then we'll get ready for next season. So I want to thank you all for watching today. If you haven't already, please give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe. And I will see y'all next week on Heisman Talk. This is Nate Dogg signing off.
You've been watching Heisman Talk. Make sure to subscribe to keep up with the latest videos.